Imagine waking up to find your dream lake cabin, the one you've poured your heart and savings into, suddenly gifted to some spoiled kid by the neighborhood tyrant. That's exactly what happened to me. Let me back up a bit. I'm Alex, and I bought this cozy cabin on the edge of a serene lake 5 years ago. It's my escape from the city grind, fishing, bonfires, pure bliss. But our little community has an HOA, and at its helm is Karen, the ultimate busybody. She's in her 50s, always nitpicking about lawn heights and mailbox colors. I mostly ignored her until she crossed the line big time. It started innocently enough. Karen's son, Jake, is this entitled 20-something who thinks the world owes him everything. One weekend, I was away on a business trip, and Karen decided my cabin looked abandoned. She claimed some obscure HOA rule about unused properties, and basically handed it over to Jake as his new party pad. I got a frantic call from a neighbor. "Alex, there's a wild party at your place, and Jake's telling everyone his mom gave it to him." My blood boiled. By the time I rushed back, the cabin was trashed. Beer cans everywhere, my fishing gear broken, and Jake lounging on my porch like he owned it. I couldn't believe my eyes. The wooden deck I'd stained myself last summer was sticky with spilled drinks, and inside my comfy leather armchair had cigarette burns. Jake, with his messy hair and smug grin, didn't even flinch when I stormed up. "Hey man, chill. Mom said it's cool. This place is mine now. Perfect for chilling with the boys." I demanded he leave, but he just laughed and cranked up the music. Neighbors peeked from their windows, but no one intervened. Karen had everyone under her thumb. Fuming, I marched straight to Karen's house, a gaudy mansion with perfectly manicured hedges that screamed control freak. She answered the door in her yoga pants, sipping a green smoothie, acting all innocent. "Alex, darling, what's the fuss? Your cabin was just sitting there, gathering dust. Jake needs a space to grow up, and per HOA bylaws, unattended properties can be repurposed for community benefit." I asked to see the rule. She waved a vague document, but I could tell it was twisted. There was no such clause. She'd invented it to spoil her kid. That night I couldn't sleep. This cabin wasn't just a building. It was my sanctuary. I'd saved for years, working overtime at my tech job, dreaming of quiet mornings casting lines into the misty lake. Now it was a frat house. I called my lawyer friend Mike, who specializes in property disputes. "Alex, HOAs can be nightmares, but this sounds illegal. We'll fight it." But lawsuits take time, and meanwhile Jake's parties raged on. Bass thumped through the woods, trash floated in the lake, and my once peaceful neighbor started complaining to me, as if I were the problem. Desperate, I dug deeper. While poring over old HOA minutes and my property deed, I discovered something juicy. Karen wasn't just a nosy HOA president. She owned a side business, an event planning company that hosted upscale weddings and retreats right on the lake's communal shore. The catch? The only access road to that prime spot cut through a narrow strip of land that was legally mine. I'd overlooked it when buying the cabin, but there it was in black and white. An easement I controlled. Karen had been using it for free, shuttling guests and equipment without a word. Her biggest event yet was coming up. A corporate retreat for a big tech firm, complete with tents, catering, and fireworks. 50 high rollers expecting luxury. If I blocked that road, her business would crumble. Revenge brewed in my mind like a perfect storm. I hired a fencing crew discreetly. We worked under the cover of night, erecting a sturdy 8-foot chain-link barrier with a heavy-duty lock right across the path. No trespassing signs went up, and I even installed motion sensor lights for effect. It was all on my property, totally legal. Event day dawned bright. I sipped coffee on my porch, watching the drama unfold. Karen's vans arrived first, loaded with decorations, only to screech to a halt at my fence. Horns blared. Karen sped up in her SUV, face twisted in rage. "Alex, what is this abomination? Remove it immediately." I strolled over, keys jingling. "Karen, rules are rules. This is my land. You taught me that when you gifted my cabin. Want access? Pay up or find another way." Her clients piled up, suits sweating in the sun, the CO barking into his phone about refunds. Panic set in. Karen tried bargaining, then threats, even called the sheriff. But the deputy checked my deed and chuckled. "Ma'am, he's within rights. Better negotiate." The event imploded. Guests left fuming, and Karen's reputation tanked. Online reviews poured in. unreliable planner. Avoid. Neighbors, emboldened, voted her out of the HO presidency. Jake slunk away and I reclaimed my cabin, fixing it up better than before. Now that fence stays, but I've added a gate with fees for access. It's turned into extra cash, and the lake's peaceful again. Lesson learned. Never underestimate a pushed homeowner. If a Karen tries to steal your slice of heaven, hit him where it hurts, their wallet. I confronted Karen immediately, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I stormed up the winding driveway to her oversized McMansion, the kind of place that screamed, "I'm better than you," with its towering columns and immaculate flower beds. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over her perfectly trimmed lawn, but I didn't care about the time. My cabin, my haven, was under siege and I needed answers. I banged on her ornate front door, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet neighborhood. Karen opened the door slowly, her face a mask of feigned surprise. She was dressed in her usual athleisure wear, holding a clipboard like it was a shield. "Alex? What brings you here in such a huff?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I didn't waste a second. "What the hell, Karen? That's my property. You can't just hand it over to your kid like it's a toy." My voice was louder than I intended, but the anger was boiling over. I'd driven straight from the cabin, still smelling the stale beer and seeing the wreckage in my mind's eye. She smirked, that infuriating, self-satisfied grin that made my blood pressure spike. Stepping back slightly, she waved a thick stack of HO papers in my face, as if they were holy scripture. "Oh, Alex, calm down. According to Section 7.2 of the HOA bylaws, any property not properly maintained for 30 consecutive days can be reassigned for community use. You were gone for 2 whole weeks on that little business trip of yours. It's clear neglect." Her tone was condescending, like she was explaining colors to a child. I snatched the papers from her hand and scanned them quickly. Total nonsense. I'd mowed the lawn and checked the gutters right before leaving. The place was spotless. And as for Section 7.2, it didn't even exist in the official bylaws. I'd read them cover to cover when I moved in. She must have doctored these documents or pulled them out of thin air to justify her power grab. Before I could call her out, a voice piped up from behind her. It was Jake, her entitled 20-something son, lounging in the hallway with a soda in hand and that same smug look I'd seen on my porch. He had his feet kicked up on an antique chair. Not a care in the world. "Mom said it's mine now, dude. Deal with it. It's way better than crashing at home anyway." He chuckled like this was all a big joke. I glared at him, my fists clenching. This kid, who probably hadn't worked a real job in his life, was treating my hard-earned retreat like his personal playground. "This isn't over," I snarled, turning back to Karen. "You're abusing your power, and I'll prove it." I wasn't backing down, not by a long shot. As soon as I got home that night, I picked up the phone and called the HOA board members one by one. But guess what? Karen wasn't just any member. She was the president, elected unopposed because no one dared run against her. And half the board were her cronies. Her bridge club buddies, her yoga pals, people who'd benefited from her favoritism over the years. They were all in her pocket, nodding along to whatever she decreed. I demanded a fair hearing, but they brushed me off with excuses. "We'll look into it, Alex," one said vaguely. "But Karen knows the rules best." Sure enough, the next day, I got an email notification about an emergency meeting they'd held without even inviting me. In it, they voted unanimously to temporarily transfer ownership of my cabin to Jake for what they called youth development purposes. Youth development? Give me a break. It was nothing more than a free vacation home for her spoiled brat, a way for Karen to keep him out of her hair while he partied on my dime. The email was full of jargon, but the message was clear. They were railroading me. Desperate, I hired a lawyer the very next morning. His name was Tom, a sharp guy with experience in HOA nightmares. He reviewed everything and shook his head. "This is blatant overreach, Alex. We can fight it in court, file for an injunction, prove the rule is fabricated. But these disputes can drag on for months, even years. HOAs have deep pockets and love to bury people in paperwork." Months? I couldn't wait that long. Meanwhile, Jake was throwing wild parties every weekend. The kind that shook the trees and sent beer bottles floating into the lake. The bass from his speakers scared away the fish I'd loved catching, and the one serene nights were filled with shouts and laughter that echoed across the water. My peace was shattered, replaced by chaos. I tried rallying the neighbors, knocking on doors and sharing my story. A few whispered their support over fences. "Karen's a bully, Alex, we've all felt it." But no one would help publicly. They were too scared of her wrath. She'd fined one guy hundreds for a non-compliant birdhouse and threatened another's garden privileges. Fear kept them silent, leaving me isolated and feeling utterly powerless. I paced my temporary apartment in the city, since I couldn't even stay at my own cabin, staring at photos of the lake on my phone, wondering if I'd ever get it back. But that's when the revenge plot sparked in my mind, like a light bulb flickering to life in the darkness. If Karen wanted to play dirty with fake rules and crony votes, I'd hit her where it hurt most. I'd been researching her background during my sleepless nights, and I knew about her little side business, the event planning company that relied on lake access. And that access, it ran right through land I owned. Oh, this was going to be good. The spark turned into a flame, and I started planning my move, a petty but perfectly legal counterattack that would turn the tables once and for all. While digging through HOA records for my lawyer, I felt like a detective in one of those late-night crime shows, sifting through dusty boxes in the community center's storage room. It was late, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and I was fueled by nothing but black coffee and sheer determination. My lawyer, Tom, had asked me to gather any dirt on Karen, anything that could prove her abuse of power. I'd been at it for hours, flipping through yellowed meeting minutes, faded emails, and stacks of financial reports. Most of it was boring stuff. Debates over pool hours, fines for overgrown weeds, the usual HO drama. But then, buried in a folder labeled Community Events, I stumbled on pure gold. My eyes widened as I read the details. It was like striking oil in my own backyard. Turns out, Karen wasn't just the tyrannical HOA president lording over mailbox colors and lawn lengths. She had a sneaky side hustle that explained a lot about her iron grip on the community. She ran a luxury event planning company called Lakeside Elegance, specializing in high-end lakeside weddings, anniversary parties, and corporate retreats. The brochures I found tucked away described it all. Elegant tents under the stars, gourmet catering by the water's edge, and bespoke experiences that screamed exclusivity. She was charging big bucks for these gigs, thousands per event, from what I could piece together from the invoices. And how did she pull it off? By using the community's shared lake access as her prime venue. Our little slice of paradise, with its pristine shoreline and scenic views, was her golden ticket. She'd host these events right on the communal beach area, turning our quiet lake into a playground for the wealthy, all while pocketing the profits and acting like she was doing the neighborhood a favor. But here's the kicker, the part that made me pump my fist in the air like I just won the lottery. The only road leading to that prime lakeside spot, the one spot perfect for her setups, ran right through a narrow strip of land that I owned. Yeah, you heard that right. When I bought my cabin 5 years ago, the property included this overlooked easement, a skinny path about 20 feet wide that connected the main community road directly to the lake's event area. It was essentially a private driveway cutting through my land, but I'd never paid much attention to it. The deed described it as an access easement for utility and limited use, but it was mine fair and square. Karen had been using it for years without so much as a please or thank you, assuming no one would notice or care. Her clients' limos, catering vans, and delivery trucks had been rumbling over my property, wearing down the gravel path, all while she raked in the cash. It was blatant trespassing, hidden in plain sight. I couldn't believe my luck. Heart racing, I pulled out my phone and snapped photos of everything. The brochures, the invoices, the maps showing the access route. Then, I rushed home to double-check my own property deed. I spread it out on my kitchen table, under the harsh light of my desk lamp, tracing the boundaries with my finger. Yep, there it was, clear as day. The easement was explicitly part of my parcel, purchased outright with no shared rights granted to the HOA or anyone else. No easements for public use, no grandfathered permissions, nothing. I'd bought it from the previous owner, an old fisherman who probably never realized its value either. Karen must have known about it on some level, but she'd banked on my ignorance, shuttling her fancy clients right through without permission. All those times I'd seen vans trundling past my cabin on event days? That was her operation, trespassing on my land to make her fortune. It was infuriating but also empowering. For the first time since this nightmare started, I had leverage, real legal leverage. And get this. As I kept digging, I uncovered details about her next big event, the crown jewel that would make my revenge oh so sweet. It was a fancy company retreat for some hotshot tech firm out of the city, booked solid with 50 high-profile guests. The plans were lavish. Massive white tents pitched along the shore, a full catering spread with lobster and champagne, live music, team-building activities on the water, and even a fireworks show to cap off the night. Scheduled for the weekend right after her bogus takeover of my cabin, like she thought she could just steamroll me and carry on business as usual. The event was worth a small fortune to her. I found an email quoting $25,000 for the whole shebang. Without access to that lakeside spot, though, it would all fall apart. No road meant no easy way to get equipment, guests, or supplies in. The alternative routes were muddy trails or a long detour around the lake, impractical for limos and loaded vans. Opportunity knocked loud and clear, like a thunderclap in my mind. If Karen wanted to play dirty, twisting fake rules to gift my cabin to her spoiled son Jake, then I'd make her pay literally. This wasn't just about getting even. It was about justice served cold and calculated. I could already picture it. Blocking that easement, watching her empire crumble as her clients turned away in frustration. The revenge plot was forming step by step, and I felt a rush of excitement I hadn't experienced in weeks. No more feeling powerless. This was my chance to turn the tables and reclaim what was mine. Little did Karen know, her side hustle was about to hit a very literal roadblock. Time for petty revenge at its finest. The idea had been simmering in my mind ever since I uncovered Karen's dirty little secret about her event planning business and that crucial easement on my land. I wasn't going to rush into anything sloppy. No, this had to be precise, legal, and utterly devastating. If she could fabricate rules to steal my cabin for her son, I could enforce real ones to dismantle her empire. But secrecy was key. I didn't tell a soul, not even my lawyer Tom or the few neighbors who'd whispered their sympathies. One wrong word, and Karen's network of spies might tip her off. Instead, I played it cool, going about my days like nothing was amiss, all while plotting in the shadows. First things first. I needed professionals who could get the job done fast and quiet. I scoured online reviews and found a local fencing crew known for quick installations. Guys who handled everything from farms to commercial properties. I called them up, explaining it as an urgent privacy project on my land, and paid extra for an overnight rush job. No questions asked, they were happy for the cash. We met at dusk, just as the sun dipped below the lake's horizon, turning the water into a mirror of oranges and pinks. The crew, a burly team of 4 with tool belts and floodlights, arrived in a nondescript truck, unloading rolls of chain-link fencing, metal posts, and a heavy-duty gate. I showed them the easement strip, that narrow gravel path snaking from the main road through my property to the lake's edge. Make it tall, make it strong, and lock it up tight. I instructed, my voice low. They nodded, getting to work under the cover of night. The installation was a symphony of hushed activity. Hammers pounded posts into the ground with muffled thuds, thanks to the soft earth from recent rains. They unrolled the 8-foot chain-link mesh, securing it with clamps and wires that glinted in the beam of their headlamps. I helped where I could, holding sections steady, my hands dirty and my heart racing with adrenaline. We added a massive padlocked gate right in the middle, the kind that swings open only with a key I now held. For extra flair, I tacked up bright red, "No trespassing private property," signs every few feet, the bold letters impossible to miss. And the cherry on top? A fake security camera, battery-powered with a blinking red light, mounted on a post to make it look like Big Brother was watching. It wasn't real, but it added that psychological edge, let them think they were being recorded. By dawn, as the first birds chirped and the sky lightened to a soft gray, it was done. The fence stood like an impenetrable fortress, completely blocking the road to the lake's prime event spot. I stepped back, admiring our work. It was totally legal, every inch on my deed-confirmed land, and oh so satisfying. The crew packed up quietly and vanished, leaving no trace but the barrier. I barely slept that night, buzzing with anticipation. But by morning, Karen's big event day had arrived and I was ready. I'd already reclaimed my cabin in spirit, kicking Jake out with a sheriff's escort after showing proof of ownership. Turns out, Even Karen's fake rules couldn't hold up to a quick legal nudge. Now I sat on my porch, the one-eyed scrubbed clean of party grime, sipping a steaming mug of black coffee. The air was crisp, the lake glassy and calm, ironic, given the storm about to hit. I had a front row seat, binoculars in hand, watching the road like a hawk. Started with the vans. Karen's fleet of white catering and decor vehicles rumbled up, loaded to the brim with tents, tables, floral arrangements and staff in matching polos. They turned onto the easement path, engines humming, and then slammed on the brakes. Tires screeched against gravel as drivers gawked at the fence, honking in confusion. Staff piled out, scratching their heads, phones in hand, frantically calling Karen. Chaos ensued like a bad comedy sketch. People unloading boxes only to reload them, arguments breaking out about what to do next. Then came Karen herself, screeching up in her shiny black SUV, tires kicking up dust. She leaped out, her face as red as a ripe tomato, veins bulging in her neck. "What the hell is this monstrosity?" she bellowed, marching up to the gate and rattling it like a caged animal. "Take it down now. This is HOA property." I set my coffee down and strolled over casually, hands in my pockets, a small smile playing on my lips. "Sorry, Karen," I said, my voice steady and sweet as pie. "This is my property, remember? You taught me all about following the rules. No access without permission. If you want through, we can talk terms, maybe a rental fee?" Her eyes bulged, sputtering incoherently about lawsuits and board votes, but I just shrugged. Rules are rules. The real show began as her client's fancy cars started piling up behind the vans, sleek sedans and limos full of tech execs in crisp suits, expecting a luxurious retreat. Horns blared in a symphony of frustration, guests milling around confused, checking watches and muttering about delays. "Where's the entrance?" one woman in heels complained, teetering on the uneven ground. Jake showed up too, pulling in on his beat-up motorcycle, still whining about his cabin being off-limits. "Dude, this is messed up. Mom, fix it," he yelled, but I just smiled wider, waving politely. The tech company's CEO, a stern guy in a tailored blazer, stormed over, face thunderous. "This is unacceptable. We're demanding full refunds. Your planner assured us seamless access." He jabbed a finger at Karen, who was now pale, desperately trying to placate him with promises of alternatives. But there were none. The detour was miles away, through rough terrain no limo could handle. The retreat devolved into a parking lot disaster right before my eyes. Tents half unloaded, food spoiling in the heat, fireworks crates abandoned. Guests trickled away, some laughing at the absurdity, others fuming into their phones, no doubt blasting reviews online. Karen shot me one last venomous glare before speeding off, her empire cracking. I raised my coffee in a mock toast. Petty? Absolutely. But as the sun climbed higher, warming my reclaimed porch, I knew this was justice, pure and simple. Revenge never tasted so sweet. As the chaos at the fence reached its peak, Karen's facade of control finally cracked wide open. She stood there, fists clenched, her perfectly coiffed hair disheveled from the wind off the lake, and she tried everything in her arsenal to salvage the disaster. First came the yelling. A full-throated tirade that echoed across the water like a banshee's wail. "This is sabotage. I'll sue you into oblivion, Alex. You think you can ruin me? I'll have the entire HOA on your doorstep by nightfall." Her voice cracked with rage, drawing stares from the stranded guests and her flustered staff. I just leaned against the gate, arms crossed, letting her vent. It was almost entertaining, watching the queen of nitpicking unravel before my eyes. When screaming didn't work, she escalated to threats, pulling out her phone and dialing dramatically. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. And the board. They'll fine you thousands for this eyesore." She paced back and forth, spitting out promises of retribution. Revoked community privileges, blacklisting me from events, even hinting at getting my cabin condemned. But I knew better. Her bluster was all smoke, no fire. I double-checked everything with Tom, my lawyer, and this was ironclad. Still, she wasn't done. In a last-ditch move, she called the cops, her voice turning whiny and victimized over the line. "Officer, there's a madman blocking public access. It's an emergency. My event is ruined." 2 squad cars rolled up within minutes, lights flashing but sirens off, adding to the spectacle. The officers, a pair of no-nonsense locals I'd seen around town, stepped out and listened to her frantic explanation. Then they turned to me. I handed over my deed, the survey maps, and a calm recount of the situation. They reviewed it all, shining flashlights on the documents, and after a few minutes, one shrugged with a half-smile. "It's his land, ma'am. No trespassing means no trespassing. You'll have to sort this out civilly." Karen's jaw dropped. She stammered protests, but they just tipped their hats and drove off, leaving her defeated in the dust. The fallout was swift and brutal. With the tech company's CEO storming away, demanding immediate refunds and threatening bad press, Karen's company lost the contract on the spot. That $25,000 gig vanished, along with any future business from that firm. Word spread like wildfire online. Guests posted scathing reviews on every platform, from Yelp to wedding forums. Total disaster. Planner couldn't even secure the venue. Avoid lakeside elegance. Social media lit up with photos of the fence, the backed-up cars, and Karen's red-faced meltdown. Hashtag it's a Karen fail and hashtag revenge fence. It went viral in our small community, racking up shares and comments overnight. For the first time, neighbors found their voices. Emboldened by the spectacle, they started sharing their own Karen horror stories in group chats and at impromptu gatherings. One guy recounted how she'd fined him for a non-regulation mailbox. Another how she'd blocked his driveway over a petty dispute. The whispers turned into a roar, and the HOA board, sensing the tide turning, called a special vote. Karen was ousted as president by a landslide, her cronies scattering like rats from a sinking ship. She slunk away from the meeting in disgrace, her reign of terror finally over. As for Jake, her entitled son, he slunk away too, tail between his legs. Without his mom's protection, he packed up his junk from my cabin under the watchful eyes of neighbors, muttering excuses about finding his own place. I got my cabin back officially that same week, with a formal letter from the new board chair full of apologies. "We regret the oversight and any distress caused." They even waived a year's worth of dues as a gesture. Walking back into my sanctuary, cleaning up the last remnants of his parties, felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. The lake sparkled outside, the fish were biting again, and peace returned. In the end, Karen's business took a huge hit that she never fully recovered from. Reviews tanked across the board, with clients canceling bookings left and right. She had to relocate her events miles away to a less scenic spot, dealing with higher costs and unhappy customers who missed the lakeside charm. Rumors swirled that she was considering selling her McMansion to cover losses. Me? I turned lemons into lemonade. I reinforced that fence with sturdier posts and added a high-tech keypad gate, complete with a digital lock and real security cameras this time. Now anyone wanting access, whether for community events or private use, has to pay a fair fee. I've set it up like a mini business. $100 for a day pass, more for larger groups. It's turned into a nice side income, pulling in a few $100 a month from boaters, picnickers, and even the occasional wedding planner. Irony at its best. The HOA even rents it for official functions, and I've got the satisfaction of knowing I'm in control. Moral of the story: don't mess with someone's sanctuary, especially if you're an HOA Karen wielding power like a weapon. Push too hard and you might just fence yourself out of your own game. What started as a nightmare ended in triumph, proving that a little research and a lot of resolve can topple even the mightiest busybody. If you enjoyed this tale of epic revenge, hit that like button, subscribe for more wild stories like this, and drop in the comments. What's the craziest neighbor drama you've dealt with? I'd love to hear your tales. Maybe it'll inspire the next video. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay petty, stay smart, and see you next time.